gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this on February 23rd, 2023. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, Shinji Mikami is leaving Tango, and Ubisoft fixed a bug in a really old Assassin's Creed. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Jordan Midler from VGC, and let me read this, a video game news podcast. What the hell?
We come to you every day at around 4 o'clock UK time with the hottest games you need to know. We in about, while this show is live, we will be launching the first episode of VGC's podcast, which will feature
congratulations and screw you.
You're welcome. I look forward to you being on in about 3 weeks so
That's
you can
right.
abuse me in person. But yeah, we thought it's about time. All these podcasts keep getting all their content from VGC. So,
Yes.
I thought at some point we should just kind of cash in on that.
Uh-huh.
But yeah. First episode is all about how much I hate the Xbox. And there is a pretty cool bit of information that my drunk boss teased earlier this week on Twitter. So as soon as that's live, and I know it's live, I will say what it is on this very broadcast. That's how you hook them in, Jeff. That's
Exactly.
how you keep you going.
You just give them tidbits, and you say if you want the further conversation, you got to listen to the full thing. I'm doing good. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I don't know. Mostly, I'm doing good. I took another cold shower. It's going to be one of those episodes. Everybody deal with that. I was enjoying myself yesterday, sitting back watching you just get like an endless reaming from the dumbest people on the internet, constantly mad at you for one thing or another. Actually, it was fun because earlier in the day, it was PlayStation fans mad at you. I think about PSVR. I can't even remember. And then Xbox fans got mad at you for just saying that Xbox fans get mad at you, basically. It was like, well, here it is. It is literally self-evident. So I was enjoying myself. How are you doing?
Look, on the Xbox thing, I prefer not to speak. I get into a lot of trouble.
Uh-huh.
But the thing is, I tweeted earlier in the day, because I did a thing with the BBC about PSVR 2, and I was like, my main criticism, which is a fair criticism, there's not really many exclusive experiences. There are factually not that many exclusive experiences. Obviously, people got angry about those facts. And then later in the day, in response to potentially the least funny meme ever committed to the internet, I just thought, I think the people that really cheerlead these console wars and are like in the trenches and make their whole identity one console or the other, pretty cringe. And that went down poorly. Thanks to the large console focused Twitter accounts that pointed people my way. But you know what? I am zen. I've walked back my words and deeds. Even though I was right. So yes. What's on the show today?
Well, let's get into this mess. But before we do so, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Okay, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Shinji Mikami is leaving Tango Gameworks. This comes from Darren Bontheus at GameSpot. Bethesda has confirmed that Tango Gameworks studio head Shinji Mikami is officially leaving the company. After 12 years at the studio that he helped form, Mikami will exit it later this year. The news of Mikami's departure originally came from an email sent to ZeniMax employees from Bethesda senior president Todd Vaughn, which thanked the veteran designer for his work at the studio. Here's the quote from that letter. I am ready today to let you know that studio head Shinji Mikami has decided to leave Tango Gameworks in the coming months. Mikami-san, who has been a creative leader and a supportive mentor to young developers at Tango for 12 years through his work on the Evil Within franchise, Ghostwire Tokyo, and of course Hi-Fi Rush. Bethesda later confirmed this on Twitter with a message that said, "We can confirm that Shinji Mikami has decided to leave Tango Gameworks in the coming months." This is not too surprising, right, Jordan? Because when he set out to start at Tango Gameworks after leaving Capcom, he basically said, I'm already pretty old. I am looking to do a few things where I will maybe establish the studio with the game I'm working on, and then I want to train the next generation of people. I want to pass on my knowledge. And he has done exactly that, right?
Yeah, you get the impression that this was in the cards for a while. It was reported in 2019 by VGC that there was talk that there was an offer for Mikami to go with Minami, which is confusing because they have the same name but one letter, to form M2, I believe is the name of the studio that handles the modern Resident Evil remakes within Capcom. And that didn't happen. Bethesda denied that. Mikami denied that. But there was enough smoke to where that seemed like it could possibly happen.
There was probably a conversation at the very least.
Yeah. So you wonder, has he done, or does he get like a position within Capcom that's very kind of ceremonial? He can, like, a creative fellow position almost. But you also got the impression from Hi-Fi Rush and the way that was announced, the director of that next to Mikami, just being like, okay, this is where we're going from now, kind of thing. I suppose this puts the chat about the Evil Within 3 kind of on ice for just now, unless someone else is directing it. But yeah,
I mean, he didn't direct 2, right? The director of Hi-Fi Rush did direct 2, right? I thought that was the case, but maybe that's wrong. Yeah.
So you wonder what he's going to do. But we're kind of getting to that. We're getting to that age where a certain generation of developers are going to start phasing themselves out. I'm surprised that we've not hit the generation quite yet where a lot of them are starting to drop dead. But you've got to imagine, like,
any minute now. Yeah, I mean, we do have a rest in peace story later today with someone that was like pretty. Who created one of the best things ever in the history of the world, and we'll get to that soon. But we're there with movies, films, right? Where and especially music, where it's like, a generation of incredible creators. It's just every year there's going to be 5, 6, 7 amazing people who are passing away. And video games aren't going to be there for probably another decade, but once we're there, it's going to be like, oh man, why is everyone always dying? Well, it's just like, that's how time works. It's linear, and here we are. And it's like, right now it is, okay, we are just hearing about them moving into retirement and thinking about what they're going to do with the rest of their lives. And it's like, I hope many of these guys, like Shinji Mikami, can realize, hey, it's time to just take the victory lap. The man worked on Resident Evil 4. Like, he deserves all the victory laps he could take here. So, and honestly, setting out to do the thing where he's like, I'm going to train the next generation, and successfully doing that, and having someone put out The Evil Within 2, which is John Johannes, and Hi-Fi Rush, also John Johannes. It's like, this is actually an amazing thing that Shinji Mikami accomplished here.
Yeah, people seem to think that when you're in a creative job, just because it's fun, you strive to work until you're literally dead. So you'd imagine that. I obviously don't know how the structure goes, but maybe he had points on the back end that made the Xbox merger very, very lucrative to him when they picked up his parent company. So yeah,
exactly.
Chill out. Go and do like an ambassadorial role at Capcom, and then do one last Resident Evil game for the road. Come on now.
Go and fix. I'm a fix Code Veronica. That's what you should tweet right now. I'm right there with you, and it's the kind of thing where you're right. That's kind of the way the video game industry has been working, and it should work, and it's paying off literally for someone that was like, they did something cool. They founded a studio that I'm sure got them a lot of stock options at Bethesda, and then when Bethesda got sold, you cash those stock options, and now, hey, it's 4 or 5 years later, time to retire. I don't think it's too. I don't think that's a coincidence, actually. All right. Microsoft president says Call of Duty will work as you would expect on Nintendo Switch. More little tidbits about these stories from Call of Duty getting committed to the Switch or Nintendo platforms for quite some time. This one comes from My Nintendo News. We learned a couple of days ago that Microsoft has now signed a 10-year deal with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty games to Nintendo platforms day and date with their console brethren with feature parity. When asked about Call of Duty running on the Switch family of systems, Microsoft President Brad Smith apparently told Games Radar that it will, quote, work exactly the way people would expect. It is worth noting that it is possible the quote was misinterpreted, as it seems far more likely Call of Duty games will come to the next generation of Nintendo platforms. Also, that quote, exactly the way people would expect. Most people would expect it to run just on the cloud. I don't think this is in some way implying that this is going to work the way people would expect it to work on other systems. But let's say that's what Brad Smith meant. Well, first of all, Brad Smith doesn't make Call of Duty. He doesn't know. He just doesn't know. That said, we'll get to another story here in a second. They probably will keep making Call of Duties that are supposed to span a wide variety of hardware for quite some time, surprisingly a longer amount of time than what people originally thought. And if you can get it running on a base PS4, a base Xbox One, Well, yes, Switch is less powerful, but there are developers out there, Iron Galaxy, the Panic Button, that have a lot of experience taking a game that runs at like 60 frames per second on a PS4 or an Xbox One and translating that to Switch. And maybe that's what they'll do. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the answer because Xbox does have the cloud sitting right there. But if they think that the commitment they made is these games are going to run natively on Switch, that there are pathways out there to make that happen. It will probably not be the optimal version though, right?
No, I think this whole Call of Duty on Switch thing is like super performative and super...
Oh, that's not
like,
even a question. Of course it is. Yes.
And I think when kind of the rubber meets the road on this stuff, I bet you it's forgotten about until there is new Switch hardware. And then they're just like, okay, we'll either put an extremely reduced version on original Switch, or... See, my thought was always they would try to adapt the mobile version of Warzone over and be like, that's Call of Duty on Switch, because I don't really think like the big cinematic campaigns, who really cares about that? Like, it's the stuff that costs 90 gigs of your PlayStation 5 space isn't going to make sense at all on Switch. But you look at how badly, I don't know how it runs now, but Apex Legends at launch was atrocious on Switch.
Still pretty bad,
yeah, and that seems like, especially stylistically and stuff, seems somewhat less intensive than Call of Duty, depending on what this is going to be. They've obviously they've not spelled it out. They're not saying we're going to have the full Warzone experience on Switch. But yeah, this is so strange. Then the Nvidia stuff makes more sense, especially if you're kind of forward looking to where. And it specifically
deals with one. I mean, it's also performative, of course, because that's also it deals specifically with the complaint about the cloud gaming thing, where Nvidia's like, this alleviates our concerns. Nintendo is like trying to replicate that in the console space. Hey, another console is we're going to be putting Call of Duty in more places. Whatever. I believe that they're going to try to do this, but I mean, it doesn't. It's definitely all there for show, to show a certain kind of Microsoft to regulators. And then, yeah, you're right. When it actually comes time to make this happen, there's no way this year's Call of Duty is going to be on Switch. No one said that. I don't think anyone's trying to imply that. By the time this deal closes, if it does close on time, let's just humor that possibility. That's June. And so, yes, in June, Microsoft will own Activision. They will make it clear, like, we don't have time to put this thing on Switch, and like even with a cloud version. So don't expect that. But, starting with next year's version, we'll figure something out. By then, we might have heard about the Switch. I think it's likely we will have at least heard, or the Switch successor. I think it's likely at that point. And at that point, they can commit to say, listen, yes, we said we're going to put it on Nintendo platforms. When this Switch is out, when this Switch 2 is out, or whatever Nintendo does next, that's when we're going to start. So look out for that. Yeah, I totally think that's how it's going to actually go down. Because a cloud version just is not going to move the needle for anybody on anything.
Yeah, it was such a strange kind of, that whole thing in Brussels was very strange, because like all the important stuff was behind closed doors. So they essentially got these journalists out to be like, here's a bit of paper, like very like WrestleMania press conference style. And I was speaking to Chris String yesterday, which you can hear on the VGC podcast plug. And he was like, yeah, the EU, it's up in the air, but the real test will be the CMA, like the UK's authority, because they hate big tech mergers and they do not take kindly to Bobby Kotick being like, if you don't approve this, the UK will be Death Valley.
Oh wow, Bobby Kotick being bad at something weird.
So his analysis was that Microsoft hopes that if the EU falls, CMA will just fall in line and try not make a big fucking deal about it. But if it doesn't get through in the UK, it could be a real ball ache. It is. We're coming to the end. Surely we're coming to the end. Yes. We've got court battles and stuff like that, but surely we're going to get to the day where we can we've got 2 stories ready. It's happening or it's fucked, and we can go for that. But yeah, in terms of where Call of Duty will live, it being on. So if I was a regulator who had any idea about anything, that Switch stuff would be like, come on. Does Nintendo even know that you have done this, or did you just ask if you could use their logo?
Oh, 100. And Nintendo's definitely been like, okay. Oh, sure. You want us to sign something that doesn't
try?
If anything, it just means maybe occasionally we'll get more money. All right, whatever. Yeah. We're fine. Listen, we're about to launch Zelda. We're good.
Yeah, we're trying to get Tears of the Kingdom to run it over 20 FPS over here. You can try and get a Call of Duty on this. Do what you like.
Yeah. I mean, if the regulators know that, then they'll also know things like the idea that a a market within video gaming is just cloud gaming or just subscriptions, and even that seems far-fetched. So it's like, man, the whole argument all the way down. It feels like, man, if Microsoft gets any regulator or judge, let's say, when they actually go to court in many of these instances, that doesn't understand this stuff, then yeah, they're going to be screwed. And it's like, I think that continues to be the gamble that Sony's playing. We'll actually talk about that in another story to close out the show today. Call of Duty 2024 might be coming to past generation consoles. This comes from Tom Henderson at Insider Gaming. Documents provided to Insider Gaming from Activision data breach from December 4th, 2022 suggest that Call of Duty 2024, codenamed Cerebus, could be coming to past generation consoles. Previous rumblings around the Call of Duty franchise have suggested that Call of Duty will finally be ending its past generation releases with Call of Duty 2023, which will be released later this year. Although Insider Gaming cannot dive deep into the information stated in the documents, references to Cerebus being on past generation consoles can be found. I think that Call of Duty is one of those franchises that will just keep being on last gen. That's not too surprising, right, Jordan?
Yeah, it's like the kind of cliched, and I think a bit of an unfair cliche game where it's like that and FIFA is the game that people just grab every year. Maybe people aren't ready to upgrade to these mega consoles and stuff like that. So is Warzone 2 is next gen exclusive, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. That sounds right. Yes, it's next gen exclusive. Yes.
Yeah, so I could see them paring down the single player portions to put it on the older consoles, but 2024, like 4 years after the end of a generation. I know it's a bit of a strange start to the generation with COVID and stuff like that, but you imagine if this does happen, it's the last one, because at some point people aren't buying PS4 games anymore, like at all. So if they're still buying like the FIFAs and stuff like that, FIFA is still the current version just about on old gen. It's not like a legacy edition yet. And that's usually the litmus test of, as soon as the previous gen becomes legacy edition, that's when it's over. But yeah, it's also due to how this information came about, that this could have been a plan that doesn't actually come to fruition when they try to do something ambitious with the 24 game and go, there's no fucking way this is going to run on a base Xbox One. So
yes,
yeah, interesting. Call of Duty's in a weird spot with their single player stuff at the minute.
I mean, it's just a tough spot all around because they've min-maxed that thing to hell, where it's just they've squeezed everything they can out of it, and it's still not enough to make Activision make sense. So they're either going to keep trying to do more and more with Call of Duty, because it's not like they're going to return to making other kinds of games. That's not the strategy that they're going to employ. So yeah, and then I mean, it is strange though that this year was supposed to be some sort of DLC, like big premium DLC drop for Modern Warfare 2, and now suddenly there's a campaign they're going to drop, and just they're going to have a whole new Call of Duty this year. Like that's the reporting, at least. And it's like, where's the fucking campaign come from? You just take one from another year and like change some skins around? I don't get it. That's pretty wild that can even happen.
Yeah. I wonder how the single player portions are looked upon internally, if it's just like a means to an end. It's like, we have to have a single player portion because everyone went batshit the year we didn't. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, we want to throw you towards Warzone and multiplayer and the worst UI in modern gaming, so that you start buying your Lionel Messi and Neymar skins. Like, it's I'm surprised Call of Duty, like, I can see a future where if Microsoft owns Call of Duty, they kind of fork it into like, here's the competitive multiplayer Warzone, all that shit that just runs as a live service, and then we get like prestige studios to do like interesting Call of Duty single player campaigns, like, because the tech behind Call of Duty, fantastic. A lot of the levels in the single player campaigns are great. Obviously the story is like warmongering US military propaganda shit, so it's like there could be something to do there in a kind of post Activision world, but that presumes it happens and we're not dead by the time this all kind of rolls out.
Also, Cerberus. There you go. Is everybody happy? Cerberus. You happy now?
Cerberus?
I think it's Cerebus. I think that's what I said. Nvidia Q4 revenue dips 21% to $6.05 billion as downturn takes its toll. This comes from Dean Takahashi at GamesBeat. Nvidia reported its quarterly revenue for the fourth fiscal quarter ended January 29th was $6.05 billion, down 21%, as the downturn takes its toll on the AI and gaming chip maker. but generative AI is expected to create a significant opportunity that will accelerate this year, said Colette Kress, chief financial officer, in a call with analysts. Its GAAP earnings per diluted share for the quarter were 57 cents, down 52% from a year ago, and up 111% from the previous quarter. Non-GAAP earnings diluted shares were 88 cents, down 33% from a year ago. It's like they are seeing, Nvidia's seeing big sort of correction here, and yet it's still making profit. Like 57 cents per share is actually still pretty good. For fiscal 2023, revenue was 26.97 billion, flat from a year ago. So yes, they aren't selling as many GPUs as they were during the height of the pandemic, for sure. And there are a lot of, I think, 4090s, 4080 Ti, or 4080s, 47 Ti's that are just, they're easy to get, especially compared to a couple of years ago. But it's not like this company's hurting, and it's just they're feeling a little bit of a bungee cord effect, right? Where you come out of a weird, tense time when everyone's like, we got to get as much hardware as we can because everyone's working from home. And then, that slack lets up a little bit. And now Nvidia's bouncing up and down, trying to figure out where they're going to settle. But it's not like this company's in any real trouble. I do wonder, though, if any of this will put pressure on Nvidia to lower the overall price structure of its GPUs, which has just skyrocketed over the last 5-10 years. I mean, I remember when I started really getting into PC gaming, when the Xbox One and the PS4 were kind of disappointing me in terms of their hardware. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to completely commit to PC gaming for the most part. And it was like, okay, you can get a 980 Ti and then a 1080 Ti. And yeah, these things are kind of expensive, but they're really, really powerful. And now, and those, $500 to $700 in that range. And now it's twice the price. And if you want to get a $500 GPU, you're getting sort of the mid-range thing these days. It's pretty wild. Do you think there's any chance that Nvidia sort of resets its prices based on dips in earnings?
I don't really think so, especially with the way that kind of all electronics are going around the world at the minute. I think it also could be a reflection of one of the things that drives people to get GPUs is advances in gaming, and we had the big advance of the new consoles coming out, and there being like okay, here's this higher benchmark for games to be developed towards, and that was kind of covered by the last series of cards, and there hasn't been anything to really force people to get this new like 40 series unless you're an absolute like PC games devotist and you have to get those couple of frames a second and stuff like that. So the return on the hundreds of pounds or thousands of pounds that you need to spend over the thousands of pounds you just spent, and as you say, comparing like pandemic numbers to post-pandemic numbers is so strange. There's going to be like a historical asterisk against all of that stuff. But yeah, I think they are fine.
Yes,
I would fucking love one of those cards. If giantbomb would like to send me one as payment,
literally
for
just asked
all of
if we could get some for coverage and stuff. And I'm like, we want to use AVI and stuff. So we'll see. I would love to talk more about hardware somewhere on the site. We keep talking about that, but I'm kind of like thinking like I'm looking at what Nvidia is doing. It just seems very unlikely that they're going to feel any real pressure they did all this work to raise prices over time. They're not going to cede that ground. They've made this the new normal, and they're going to just keep cashing their profits there as long as they can. But man, yeah, AV1, I would really like to switch all of this stuff to AV1. That'd be great. Meanwhile, over at AMD, things are still in a pretty weird state, too, because they've been having issues with some of their hardware and reliability with the most recent generation of its GPUs. So we might be waiting a little while longer for the Radeon RX 7800, 7700, and 7600. This comes from Game Reactor. While NVIDIA is releasing more variants of its RTX 40 series, and we're expecting to see the RTX 4070 at some point, AMD has been largely quiet since releasing the Radeon RX 7900 XTX and the 7900 XT. However, it does seem like we'll be getting the 7800, the 7700, and 7600 cards, just not as soon as we'd have hoped. AMD has recently stated that the remaining graphics cards in the 7000 series will most likely be delayed a bit. Current speculation points at a mid-2023 release for the cards, which is still quite a ways away, especially in terms of how frequently these things usually come out. But it may be worth the wait, considering these cards are expected to be very cost-effective when pitted against the exceedingly expensive 40 series. So the 7900 GPUs came out, and reports were failure rates somewhere north of 10%, which is pretty high for when you consider like what is normal for RMAs. It's supposed to be somewhere between 3 to 5%, I think. I'm trying to like keep this all in my head. But over 10% is, that's near red ring of death numbers. So
yeah.
this seems like a big issue, and probably what is happening here is they see that demand is soft, and at the same time they're putting out products that are getting a bad reputation. That's just a recipe for disaster. So they are likely taking their time to make sure that the cards that do come out following the 7900 are good and won't fail, right? Because that's the kind of thing where if you could mess up on like predicting what demand is. That's like a lot of things you were saying, comparing to pandemic years. Companies usually struggle to predict what demand's going to be. If you get in the range of like 40% of predicting like, oh, this is how close we were to what demand actually was, that was good in the before times. And now it's like, now no one has any idea what demand's going to be. So you're not going to be able to accurately predict what people are going to want. But then you have to then put out a product that the people that do want it are happy with, because otherwise you're going to be dealing with the headaches on both sides. And a company like AMD that's struggling to catch up to Nvidia at every turn and has been doing a good job of that for years, any sort of speed bump on that is really going to be disruptive, right?
Yeah. It's just kind of it's a strange time for that segment of the industry. It's not one that it's not one that I keep up with massively, but it seems like the frequency with which new cards are announced is kind of ridiculous recently. Like it feels like the especially from like the G4 side, the Nvidia side. For me, the stuff they do from like a tech perspective with that power is much more interesting. You know that video they showed where it was like, here's the AI remaster of a game that hasn't been remastered, and here's Portal RTX and stuff like that.
Nvidia has this thing where it's like they can make you make eye contact with your camera the entire time, no matter where you're looking. I'm like, that's fucked up, but that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, see, if that stuff interests me more. Raw power is great, and I'm sure PC folks get a real raging hard on for it, but using that power in interesting ways is like the thing for me.
People mentioned that the 1080 Ti had a long life. That card was like, AMD was like, we're going to come out and we're going to really compete with Nvidia, and we're going to put out something that's so powerful, and Nvidia bought into it. And so, all right, we're going to put out a card that is twice as powerful as anything we have, and we're only going to charge $100 extra for it, or maybe $200 extra for it. And it's like they bought into it. So it's like, first of all, wait, Nvidia, you can do that whenever you want. Like you have all this spare power and profit margin to put out a card that is twice as powerful as anything else in the market, and only charge $700 for it. And it's like, oh wait, they let us look behind the curtain a little bit too much there. And you'll notice that since then they have not done anything close to that. So shout outs to the 1080 Ti. Well, we all loved you. Ukraine's government wants toxic atomic heart pulled from sale over Russia links. This comes from Tom Ivan at VGC. The Ukrainian government has said it will ask Sony, Microsoft, and Valve to pull Atomic Heart from sale on their digital stores in the country. The game, which features Soviet and Russian military themes, was released for PC, PlayStation, and Xbox consoles on Tuesday, just days before the first anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It has become the subject of controversy over its ties to Russia, including claims that the Russian government stands to benefit financially from its release due to its majority ownership of investors in the game. In a statement initially issued to Ukrainian website dev.au and later translated to English to PC Games N, Ukraine's Deputy Minister of Digital Transformation, Alexei Bornyakov, urged platform holders to limit distribution of the game in other countries too. Regarding the situation with the release of the game Atomic Heart, which has Russian roots and romanticizes communist ideology and the Soviet Union, the Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine will send an official letter to Sony, Microsoft, and Valve requesting a ban on selling digital versions of this game in Ukraine. We also urge limiting the distribution of this game in other countries due to its toxicity, potential data collection of users, and the potential use of money raised from the game purchases to conduct a war against Ukraine. This is yet another situation where it's like, man, well, this isn't the culture war. This is just actual war. But it like touches on gaming in some weird way. And this game has always been one where like I've heard these claims. People have not necessarily been able to like 100% identify, oh, this is how the game's sales benefit Russia. But the developer has continued to be strangely silent on it, which I think lends credence, at least in my opinion, I don't know, to those claims. And so I'm like, yeah, that does seem weird. That, man, the idea of buying something that, especially when we have all these embargoes on Russia for all these other things, it's like, why does this one get a pass? I don't know. I don't have a good answer there. We did a quick look of it. I think the game looks pretty good. I don't think it looks like it romanticizes the USSR in any way. Makes it look like, it was doomed to fail no matter what. But I think that, even though that's a point that this minister brings up, I still think it's mostly besides the point. But Jordan, once again, I'm in this situation and I don't necessarily know what to tell people other than by your conscience. What do you do when you're in this situation?
Yeah, this is a weird one, specifically because there is no, I mean, the obvious recent comparison with like Hogwarts in terms of like, here is the direct evidence that you can make your opinion based on this, whether you want to play X. This is more according to this, and there's a lot of smoke, but there's not quite the fire, and it's just there was like an old EULA on the developer's original website that said by playing the game you were willing to give your information to like the Russian government and stuff like this. Like, it's all very strange, to the point where if I was going to play that game, and I've not downloaded it, I am curious to play it because some of the dialogue I've seen posted online looks truly atrocious. It seems like
do watch the quick look. At least watch the quick look. I laugh out loud multiple times. God, I wish one of the things, because the guy has no Russian accent, the main character that you're playing, and he's just like, I think he says, "Fuck my life." And I'm like, what? This is alternate universe USSR. What is happening here? It's real bad. That part of it's real bad. I don't know, some of the robot design and the way like the combat was working looked pretty good. But again, it's in pre-release trailers, aesthetically it totally sold me. I was like, oh, what's this, like Bioshock-ski, like kind of Russian sim kind of stuff? But yeah, it's Crispy Critters, correct, chat. That is my good friend Dashu put up a clip that went semi-viral of the dialogue, and some of the stuff they sent me it's distasteful. But you know what, whatever, that is not, whether or not you find a game's dialogue terrible is totally irrelevant compared to like ties to a military operation that is currently killing like hundreds of civilians. So it's one of those weird ones that I can understand them pulling it in Ukraine. I don't think they'll get much traction pulling it anywhere else, just because it feels like there's not a direct enough, here is the obvious problem with it. You have to kind of explain it to someone in a couple of sentences, and as soon as you go past the one sentence why this is bad, it's just like gone. Like, it's not gonna kind of through. And it's already out. Like, it's kind of too late to do this. Like, I think the as with Hogwarts Legacy, I'm not gonna tell anyone they're a bad person for playing it. I'm just I don't feel comfortable in that position doing that ever. I'll say that I'm listening to the criticisms coming from Ukraine about it, though. I'll listen to anybody who wants to criticize something and bring more attention to it, and if they think that's the right thing to do, then I'll hear them out. And beyond that, it's like, I don't know. Now, I mean, I once again am in a situation where I personally feel like there's so many games out, it's easy to pass, which is, I think, a pretty weak thing on my side of like, oh yeah, well, I'll just play something else. There's plenty of other games, so it's easy to ignore this. But what if it wasn't easy to ignore? What if it was Zelda? Which, when it comes to the Saudi Arabian investment in Nintendo, that is more pointed. And so it's like, well, I'm going to be in that situation. And first of all, if someone wants to tell me I'm a bad person for playing a game, that's fine. I'll listen to that criticism. I'm just not going to be able to do that myself. I do feel uncomfortable saying that. All right. The creator of PlayStation's iconic logo sound has passed away. This comes from Isaiah Colbert at Kotaku. Toru Okada, the Japanese musician behind the distinctive sound that has accompanied the PlayStation logo and advertisements for a quarter century, has passed away. The news of Okada's passing was confirmed today by his bandmates on Twitter, as well as the Japanese news site Excite. According to Excite, Okada passed away at the age of 73 due to heart failure on the morning of February 14th. Just real happy trails, and rest in peace to Okada. I figure let's just play it real quick because it's just too good not to. I think. Jordan, I think this is one of the greatest sounds ever composed by man. Whenever I play a PlayStation game on my Steam Deck, those good speakers, it moves me every time I hear it, and I get so excited, even if that game I'm playing is Bubsy 3D. So let's see if we bring it up here. All right, this might be loud, everybody, but fuck it, let's go for it.
know that game is to me? That is Spyro, that sound.
Yeah.
That is, I am 5 years old. I'm about to play my first ever video game, and it's the first Spyro, and it's just like, oh my god, my life has just changed irrevocably.
Yep. Ridge Racer, so many, Castlevania. There's so many games that just immediately pop into my mind when I hear that. That is just such a good sound. It's PlayStation should just go back to that for all of their PlayStations from now on. That's too good. Whenever you launch a PlayStation, it should be that sound. Apparently, Okada was going to do a reunion with his bandmates. They were going to play a concert, and he was trying to get healthy enough to do that, but it wasn't meant to be. Once again, happy and peaceful trails to Okada.
Definitely. Jeff, just before you move on to the next story,
Please.
I can officially say that at least on Apple Podcasts, the first episode of VGC, a video games podcast, is live. Included in this, news about Konami's E3 plans and the return of several Konami franchises. Kept you waiting, huh? Get it? Kept you waiting, huh?
Wink!
Get it?
Wink! No, we're not saying it loud enough. Wink!
Kept you waiting, huh? So head on over to let me get the bit.ly link up here. It is link.to/VGC, lnk.to/VGC. You can pick your podcast service of choice and listen to Andy Robinson very carefully lay out his knowledge of Konami's E3 plans and when and where we might see the return of multiple
of Skate or Die, Adventure Island.
Yep.
Bonk. Did they do Bonk? I can't remember.
List them off.
Yeah. Konami Wawa World.
Yes. The fucking what was the wrestling game that they had Colt Cabana and a mask come up for E3?
Sure. Yeah, that too.
The one that
Boktai.
So yes, somewhere in a hole in Eastern America, Dan Reichert just sat up because it's time. It's time. It is actually time.
Someone sent me the rumor that's going around today before the podcast went up that Konami's going to shadow drop at today's State of Play a Metal Gear Solid collection with every single Metal Gear game, and I'm like, oh honey.
I would like to confirm that is not that Robinson talks about. Please,
I looked at this cover and it's just every single logo for every. I'm like, oh guys, come on, you know better than this.
Metal Gear Acid. There it is. The skateboarding minigame.
Yes. Konami had some pretty good skateboarding games in that during those Tony Hawk days. That'd be cool. Bring that back too. So, what are we talking about? Metal Gear. Obviously, we're talking about Metal Gear, but are we talking about Castlevania and what's the other one that always gets mentioned in these talks about the games they might be bringing back?
So the current idea is that this is Andy's reporting. Castlevania is coming back. That is the furthest along of all of them.
Right.
The idea is that similar to how EA didn't put out a kind of basic 4K remaster of Dead Space and then put out the remake. The current debate is when to put out the classic games, kind of like it's like the conversation was, when do we put out all these classic games on storefronts again? Do we do that before the MGS3 remake?
Metal Gear Solid games were delisted about a year ago, right? So that's what you're talking about. Those classic games that haven't been available for purchase for quite some time.
Yes. So the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, which has been kind of widely talked about, is a very poorly kept secret. When does that drop? Does that drop before we put all these classic games out, or do we put all these classic games out to get people excited? Because as soon as you remake MGS3, it'll be like, okay, when are you going to do 1? When are you going to do 2? When are we finally going to get MGS4 off of the PS3? And it seems that Konami will have a presence at E3 to chat about MGS, Castlevania, to theoretically chat about MGS and Castlevania and the 50 Silent Hill projects. But it's time.
That's right.
They're going to make video games again. But yes, for the complete most accurate take of this, head on over to VGC's podcast. Look forward to those quotes being reported all over the place.
Look forward to tomorrow on tomorrow's show here, everybody. But seriously, go listen. It's super easy. Just add it to your RSS feed right there in your podcast catcher.
Oh no, Mike Minotti's here. Can we shut this show down, please?
Yeah, God, we literally tried to ban him yesterday. We couldn't figure it out. So
Mike sat and watched me get abused by Xbox fanboys and did nothing.
Yeah, he wouldn't lift a finger to help you. Absolutely, that's so true about him. I'm excited. Do you think it's something that Konami is supposed to be one of the companies at E3? There's a pretty beefy list actually of publishers outside of the big three, which aren't going to be there. It's actually a surprisingly good list of E3 supporters from among publishers, Konami being one of them. Do you think they have their own showcase at that time, or do you think they just pop in some of these things into that PlayStation showcase that's going to happen a little bit before?
This is I'm going to wave the speculation flag here.
Please, everybody, do not report this.
Yeah, I bet it shows up at the PlayStation showcase.
Yeah, that PlayStation showcase is supposed to be big.
Metal Gear as PlayStation.
Oh yeah,
like Hearts and Minds, Metal Gear as PlayStation.
I bet money too. I bet money it's also PlayStation.
Hearts and Minds, bags of money.
Bags of money.
I don't know if anyone's noticed. If you're not a frequenter of 2023 in video games on Wikipedia, Sony has fuck all this year apart from Spider-Man. So expect more of these third-party deals to kind of.
And that was always the plan. These third-party deals was always the plan for this generation because they knew that their bigger games were going to take longer and longer, and then they had this live service strategy that was going to be this other play that they were going to make that they weren't certain about. So it's like, hey, let's go to ZeniMax and let's get a Starfield as an exclusive. Well, whoops, that went away. Well, now we have all this extra money. Let's make these deals over and over again. So yeah, they've made a lot of those with Square Enix. They're going to keep making those deals. If Konami wants to step up and be another Square Enix in Sony's pocket, I bet Konami's going to listen.
But Sony are buying Square Enix, haven't you heard? Anyway,
I bet those conversations happened and then the whole fucking world changed. So,
I bet the remakes, bet they're either PlayStation exclusive for a year or very PlayStation tied, and I bet the theoretical re-releases just go everywhere because it's like the Final Fantasy kind of strategy of like the shit that people are that really care about, like the Final Fantasy VII remake, that's locked down until it's on PC, and then the kind of classic stuff just goes everywhere. Although I bet somehow MGS4 still doesn't come to any other platform.
Yeah, that's what I'm always just like. Is Konami really going to do the work and i.e. money? Are they going to pay the money it takes to get Metal Gear Solid 4 to run on anything else? And I just don't believe it. I just don't think so.
They'll do a collection with all the games, and then you'll get a voucher for PlayStation Plus Premium to stream the PS3 version of Metal Gear Solid 4.
That's where it'll be.
But yeah, this is a showcase level announcement. This isn't I saw people chatting state of play in the. Let's talk about it. We got a couple other stories, but that state of play we are going to be talking over today. I just don't expect much from it. I was telling Jordan before, these state of plays at this time of year always feel like the obligatory ones where they've made the marketing deals with companies. And the way these marketing deals work is Sony says, hey, we're going to be your co-marketing partner. Therefore, you can't, for one thing, you can't go be, doing other deals that might promote other things. That means no Game Pass, blah, blah, blah. That's all just boilerplate stuff. But mostly it means we're going to give you a certain amount of money or a certain amount of services that are worth an equivalent to an amount of money. And one of the things Sony does to meet those that agreement is we'll put you in a state of play which is worth about this much money in our opinion. And so yes, we have to have a state of play at some point, whether we're ready for it or not. And so that means we'll have a bunch of third-party partner stuff. We'll get a Suicide Squad in there and we'll call it a day. And so I just don't expect much from the state of play. I've always heard it's pretty lightweight. Maybe there's some surprises. Maybe there's a Final Fantasy IX remake or something I saw people saying, or a Final Fantasy Tactics update. Sure, that could happen. But that showcase was always meant to happen last fall. The studios weren't ready for it. That showcase is now still happening before the C3, so they're just going to save everything for that. Like, that's just stuff. The last couple of state of plays, or at least some of the last couple, like, has been like Hogwarts Legacy, Gotham Knights, Suicide Squad. It's like Warner Brothers have clearly got this like set in stone. This is part of our marketing. Yep. You will do this. You'll co-market with us, and you can put 5 PSVR games that 5 people on Earth will play afterwards. But yeah, it's a short one. I'm really hope that Suicide Squad is good because I think Rocksteady's fucking amazing, and it's ridiculous how long it's been since the Rocksteady game came out.
7 years.
With like obviously with Sefton leaving, it makes you wonder like are they leaving on a high, or was this such a shit show that it took 7 years and they're like, we can't fucking work here anymore? So yeah, been interesting show tonight. But the Sony's whole kind of lineup for the rest of the year is strange, because I was in a train station yesterday and they have those live from PS5 adverts going, and it's like, okay, they're advertising like Horizon, which came out last year, and God of War, which came out last year, and there's Spider-Man 2, but like, where's the showcase? Has to kind of lay out the next 2 years of things. Like, this has to be like the phase 2 of PS5 kind of stuff. Like, it has to be, what's that next Guerrilla project? Give us a Last of Us release date. I'm still a Last of Us Factions release date. I still think they might do it on the 10-year anniversary of the first game coming out, which is the 13th of June. And what are all these other teams doing? Show us the Blue Point game. We know it exists.
Yeah, I think that Blue Point is going to be one of the big things in that showcase, because that's one that should be ready. It's probably a big name. The way that it's their original thing, but still, it's like, it's going to look amazing. I think it's going to be one of the big things in there. But it's then they're going to sprinkle in all these other smaller studios that they either acquired or partnered with, or many of the ones they partner with they have acquired. I don't know, but those also could be projects that are going to take a long time. So it's like Jade Raymond's game going to be ready? I don't know. We'll see. But they should have multiple, like 3 to 4 big things ready to go for a showcase, and then a bunch of other stuff in there. That sounds about right. There
was one mentioned in the chat that I would put my hat on. Ghost of Tsushima 2. That's got to be like, I mean, it's pretty evident they're working on it, and I could imagine that being one that they're like, here it is. It's our spring 24 game.
Yes,
like,
so this is what you're going to be playing after Spider-Man 2, 100%. I think that's the argument they're going to make with that game. Yeah. And
then they're going to bring back Infamous, and they're going to bring back Sly, and they're going to bring back Jack, and they're going to bring back Pain.
All at the same time on the same day. It's going to be the best day ever.
Yeah. I've heard.
Well, let's hit these last few stories. Activision responds to huge hack that may have leaked future Call of Duty info. We kind of alluded to this in that story earlier about Call of Duty 2024 still being on last-gen consoles. This comes from Luis Joshua Gutierrez at GameSpot. Activision has been the victim of a hack that may have leaked information about the future of Call of Duty and more. According to a Vice report, hackers accessed this information by tricking an employee into giving them their SMS two-factor authentication code to log into their Slack. The hacker leaked the information regarding a handful of upcoming seasons for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, with information on new operators, weapon maps, and conversations between co-workers in the hashtag general channel. The report goes on to say that Activision said the following statement. Following a thorough investigation, we have determined that no sensitive employee data, game code, or player data was accessed. This is similar to other Slack breaches that happened with Rockstar. Wasn't there like some kid out there that was doing this over and over to studios? Seems like Slack continues to be any sort of messaging tool for employees continues to be a soft point for security wise, especially since it can be social engineered, which seems like the one reliable hacking technique that kind of works over and over again. But yeah, we might get more information out of Call of Duty from this. But yeah, these developers are going to continue getting targeted by these kinds of hacks.
Any information about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4?
Yeah, they said, "Fuck you, Jordan. We're never doing that." So it's weird that they wrote it like that, but man.
Yeah, I'm used to it in the past 24 hours.
Yeah. Assassin's Creed Syndicate PS5 update finally fixes a long-running issue. This comes from George Yang at GameSpot. Ubisoft will release a patch on February 23rd at 3 a.m. Pacific time for Assassin's Creed Syndicate on PlayStation 4. It will fix the flickering issue that plagues the game when it's being played on PlayStation 5. I want to say thank you to a Giant Bomb community member who started playing this game a couple weeks ago. I think they already played through it, because by doing that, you guaranteed they were going to fix this game after you were mostly finished with it. That's how it works. So congratulations to you. I saw that on Reddit, and there it is. And then finally, Microsoft and Sony not close to agreeing to terms for Call of Duty deal. This comes from Eddie McCoo. Microsoft has reached a 10-year deal with Nintendo to put Call of Duty on Nintendo platforms if the Xbox company succeeds in its attempt to buy Activision Blizzard. However, it appears Microsoft and Sony are still at odds for a similar deal. According to GI.biz's sources, a deal between those two companies is, quote, not close. Microsoft President Brad Smith said at a meeting with regulators in Brussels this week, "We haven't agreed to a deal with Sony, but I hope we will," according to the site. Smith reportedly had a piece of paper in his pocket that contained the terms of the deal to demonstrate that Microsoft is ready to make the deal with Sony. Again, performative, but that's what else is this man supposed to do? Jordan, yes, I don't think Sony is ever going to make this deal before they are in a situation where all is lost. They have come this far. They are not going to abandon it now and sort of abandon their chance to have regulators stand in the way hard enough that it actually causes this deal to fall apart. Even if it's, I think it's a fluctuating percentage that it's of the likelihood of that at all times. But even if it's still like a 10% chance, that's a 1 in 10% chance that you don't have to deal with a Microsoft sitting across the bargaining table with you, whether that's now or 10 years from now, using Call of Duty as this major bargaining chip. And it's something they want to avoid at all costs. So there's just no chance Sony signs this deal until it's basically approved by regulators, or regulators come to Sony and say, we are going to approve this. We have a chance to ask them to make concessions. What do you want to do? Well, at that point, Sony might sign off on something. But before then, there's no chance, right?
No, there's no point, especially when Microsoft could fuck this up for themselves. There's no point doing a foul throw to the point where like you're like, oh well, it's getting awkward. It's getting a bit kind of handbags at dawn over the two executives like shouting at each other. Sony just needs to like shut the fuck up and continually be like, no, we're not going to do it, and let Microsoft do all of this performative stuff with the Switch and the cloud and stuff like that. And it's going to just come down to the regulators now. There's nothing. You imagine Microsoft are putting on thick so that when they go to the regulators, it's like it's a foregone conclusion. But as long as Sony's not at the table, it becomes spicy. I expect it goes through with concessions, and those concessions are even more extreme than they are currently.
Yes,
because the whole 10 years for Call of Duty, it's like I still think Sony will try to push that even further as possible. Be like, either something like 15 to 20 years, or like just a legal ban on it becoming exclusive or something. It'll be something unprecedented. That's the way it'll end up. But yeah, obviously there was all those things about how they offered they didn't offer Microsoft, but there was chat about Microsoft being like, if you just shaved off the Call of Duty part of the Activision product, this will go through no problem. So why don't you do that? All those Activision titles, Skylanders, Crash Runner, that's the two Activision games.
Yeah, that's it.
So yeah, it is. It's always funny to be like the Microsoft Activision merger when it's like the Microsoft Call of Duty Overwatch and World of Warcraft merger. Like it's that. So yeah, we'll see. I can't wait till it's fucking done, Jeff.
Yeah, any minute now. I'm checking my watch.
There will be a time I come on this show where we can finally, Chris String can finally have a sleep.
Yes.
So he can stop fucking covering this.
Yeah, we'll put that sweet little prince to bed and just say, you take a nap now. You deserve it. You earned it, big guy. All right, we have the poll from yesterday. Let's fade that up. There we go. Despite what it said, will Nintendo have a shadow drop of a Mario Switch bundle at the next Direct? 28.9% said no. 71.1% said, or I'm sorry, 71.1% said no. 28.9% said yes. I'm also leaning towards no. If they do something, it'll be just a reissue of that Mario Switch bundle that I completely forgot about until people pointed it out. But when that happened previously, and yeah, I could see them reissuing that, sure. But I'm leaning towards no, like everybody else. Did you see that that potential leak of a Mario Day Mario bundle coming back?
Yeah, I thought this would be like sometimes you get. If you get a modern bundle with a console, it'll be like the God of War bundle is clearly a normal PS5. They've shoved a code in and put another skin over. I imagine they do that with all the old Mario bundles, put a skin over them. It has like a little something. I don't know what it would be for the film though, because you assume it's not new content for the game, because that's not very Nintendo. But it's in conjunction with the game with the film coming out, so it couldn't be like a digital code for the film. It's just maybe it's literally just a reskinned box. It's like, and now
it could just be the same box, right? It could just be the same thing.
What if it's the Mario Odyssey bundle? It comes with a code for that 30th anniversary thing or another Mario game, and you can and it's like, oh, here's the Mega Mario pack. Go and see the film in theaters, and it actually has no content associated with the film at all.
Yep, I think that's likely. If anything like this does happen. Otherwise, we'll just show that trailer on March 9th, and then Mario Day will just be like a bunch of, I'm sure it'll be an all-out marketing blitz for that movie. I guess it would be a little bit surprising if Nintendo didn't also find other ways to capitalize on that with Mario-related stuff, and that I think I would extend that to some sort of console, or trying to sell a console in some way. All right, let's come up with a poll for tomorrow. In the meantime, while I do that, Jordan, tell people once again about the podcast, which is live now, and then tell people where else they can find you.
The podcast is live now. Wario64 has officially tweeted about it.
There you go.
We are news making. So yes, go to any of your podcast providers. Go to VGC, a video games podcast. It will be myself hosting it with another VGC member, be it Andy Robinson or Chris Scullion every week, and we'll also be joined by a gaming luminary. We have some great guests. We have amazing guests lined up, and Jeff Grubb. So it sure will be fun. Thank you, Slane McAwesome, for the link in the chat. Are you a luminary, Mike? Well, I thought you were, but you showed your true colors last night when you were liking all those abusive tweets about me. But yes, all your favorites will make their appearance at some point in the future, and some of your least favorites, by which I mean me, because I'll be on every episode. They were funny. Honestly, some of them, this is the problem, right? See, if you're getting like dogpiled on Twitter, what you don't know is the person who's getting dogpiled is also sending some of the abusive tweets to their friends, being like, that's funny as fuck.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
that's
man,
really
they got
funny.
me here. Man, fuck, that's good.
But yeah, enjoy the podcast. It is something that's been a passion of mine for a while. We used to have the Overload podcast that was highly libelous, so we probably won't say anything horrible about the Queen on this one, but it'll have the same spirit, you know.
Yeah, this one, you just talk about Jimmy Carter on this one. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, I'm as if anyone in the UK know. I only know who Jimmy Carter is via The Simpsons. I didn't realize he was actually a president until much older than that.
Most people here don't know either, don't worry. Is the PlayStation 1 opening sound the best thing you've ever heard? You have two options here, yes and yes. Vote on that. We'll talk about it tomorrow. This was short week. I'll tell you what, short weeks. I don't know. You guys didn't have a short week. You guys don't have presidents. We had President's Day off. And so it was a short week. Short weeks are not doing it for me anymore. It's the long weekend. Yes. The short week, I expect so much from it. And still by the end of the week, I'm like, man, that was a long week. What the hell? So got to do something about that. Got to maybe lop off another day on the other side of a short week and see what
have you considered doing any actual work? Because I don't know what you guys do around here at Giant Bomb. You just incredible. Seem to randomly play old shit games and then do a podcast occasionally.
Yeah, that's listen, that is out of the question. You know that's not in the contract that I signed. So how dare you, sir? All right, everybody. Jordan, thank you so much for taking today to talk with me about video games. I really appreciate it, man.
You're welcome, love. Have me back anytime.
Yep, I'll keep in touch and can't wait to be on the show. Everybody, let's see, Giant Bomb. Today we have the talk over for the State of Play. We're going to go right into voicemail dump truck. Right after this, we have Blight Club. Dan Reichert's going back to Sonic 06. I can't wait. Woo-hoo. PUBG is over. It's time to once again punish Dan. I've also been looking at some other games to punish both him and Mike, who's locked in now. He's been cursed by the Blight Club, so he's got to stick with it. So check that out right after this. Stick with us all day today. We're gonna have a bunch of stuff, mostly old video games and podcasts. So fuck you, Jordan. Everyone, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.
Kept you waiting, huh? Kept you waiting, huh?
Wait.
Kept you waiting.